Good morning, everyone. This is Deborah Pruitt welcoming you to the webinar. We will be getting started in just a couple of minutes. We'll have a number of people joining in. Good morning, everyone. This is Deborah Pruitt welcoming you to the Take the California Foster Youth Challenge. Clear there are a lot of people eager to take this challenge, and we're happy to be here to help explain the FAFSA challenge to help more foster youth get access to financial aid for college and career programs. As we begin, I'd like to take just a minute and go through some logistics. So the call-in information, which you probably just used, is on your screen. We recommend that you call in for better audio. So if you're on computer audio, you might prefer the phone number and the access code on your screen. Also, to submit questions at any time during the webinar, you should see a control panel on the right side of your screen. Actually, you can move it around, but you will want to go to that questions panel there and type your question, and be sure and click send. And then my colleague Debbie Rauscher is there to receive those questions and collect them, and we will handle all of them at the end of the webinar. But feel free to type them and send them as soon as they come to mind, and then you can move on and listen to the rest of the webinar. The presentation materials and the audio and recording of this webinar and all the slides will be on our website at jbaforyouth.org. And the PDF of the slides is available in the handout section. You can see that on your control panel also, and you'll see the webinar slides there in case you want to use those as we go through the webinar. So our agenda today starts with just a very short overview of foster youth and financial aid access, and then a description of the scholarships and awards that are available through the FAFSA Youth the FAFSA Challenge, and then an explanation about how to participate. We have a diverse audience on the call, so we are going to make sure we address basics for each kind of organization that's here. We'll be discussing the resources and assistance that JBay will be providing to help make sure that you can meet the challenge. Take a few minutes to demystify the FAFSA a bit with respect to foster youth. And then the spotlight on a few of the successful strategies that we know that many of you may be doing, but that others have shown us have been really successful. Today's presenters are myself. I'm Deborah Pruitt. I'm a program manager with the John Burton Advocates for Youth. I'm kind of a host. I'll be dropping in and out. Melinda Clemens is a consultant helping us with the FAFSA challenge. Jessica Petros will be here. She's the project manager in Los Angeles for the John Burton Advocates for Youth. And we have Jeff Belcher here, who's a teacher on special assignment with Project Access in the Fresno Unified School District. Just a quick note, in case you aren't really clear on who John Burton Advocates for Youth is. This is a screenshot of our website. I urge you to go there and learn more about the work that we're doing and the resources available here for your work on supporting foster youth and homeless youth. We're an advocacy organization working in 3 areas: education, housing, and health, and also working to support organizations that work in those areas. And the particular project that I work in is the California College Pathways Project, where we support the transition for foster youth into college and career programs to move on to a life of success. And I'd like to just point out that our website is loaded with resources for that purpose, and you can see them in that area where it says resources and reports. You can also notice next to that, we summarize all the current laws and policies that apply to foster youth in post-secondary education and webinars and conferences as well. And then also notice in the bottom right-hand corner that you can sign up for our newsletter if you're not getting that already. We send out updates on crucial policies that affect foster youth and other research and information that could help you support in your program. We also have a student-oriented website that has much of all of that wealth of information, as you can see, on the areas that affect students as they're trying to enroll and succeed in college. So I like to make sure everyone knows student.ca collegepathways.org is a great way for students to get answers to questions and get access to support. So a quick statement to help make the case of how valuable financial aid is for students. We know that the data show that students receiving at least $7,500 in financial aid in the first few years actually transfer into a 4-year university and or graduate from a program. That's an important number because students that receive only $1,000 to $2,500 in financial aid transfer or graduate at a rate of just 17%. Of course, it's not hard to imagine that students receiving less aid than that complete their program at an even lower rate. So we know how important a difference financial aid can make. When we look at what's happening with foster youth in terms of financial aid, we see a troubling situation. So again, the data show that 83% of first-time foster youth students at community colleges in California are getting the BOG fee waiver, the Board of Governors fee waiver. That's great. But only 57% of them are getting the Pell Grant. And probably most, if not all of that 83% who get the BOG fee waiver are eligible for the Pell Grant as well. And furthermore, only 10% are getting a Cal Grant. And we know that, again, most of these students would qualify for a Cal Grant. So that indicates a serious gap in the kind of financial aid that foster youth are eligible for versus what they're actually receiving. And we also know that in general, billions of dollars each year get left on the table simply because students aren't completing the federal application for financial student aid, which is what FAFSA stands for. So we know that the resources are there, the eligibility is met, but the students aren't getting the financial aid that would actually help them succeed. So to help fill that gap, solve that problem, we are initiating a FAFSA challenge for California foster youth for 2017 and 2018. So the goal here is that at least 61% of all California high school seniors who are in foster care complete the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application, which means that they'll actually be completing the FAFSA at the same rate as the overall student population. Now, I want to just mention briefly, we call it the FAFSA Challenge. We tend to talk in shorthand and refer always to the FAFSA and how important the FAFSA is and how to complete the FAFSA. But this also includes those dreamers and non-resident students who are eligible to complete the California DREAM Act application. So these are students who are eligible for California financial aid and state residential fees waivers, but not eligible for federal financial aid. And the website is there for accessing information in the application for the California DREAM Act. Just a quick note on special immigration juvenile status, that students with a pending application for special status are not eligible for federal financial aid. We want to make sure everyone knows that if you work with immigrant students. And if an undocumented student does not have an application already pending for special immigrant juvenile status, then we recommend that you make sure that the child welfare agency is contacted and the child's attorney is contacted to see if that's the right option for that student. And I did include a handout on this. We did brief on special immigration juvenile status recently, and I included that handout also in the webinar handout section on your control panel in case that applies to some of your youth. You might find that helpful. So the great news is there's a chance to win $500 scholarships for students who complete their FAFSA in the counties that are participating in the challenge. So for all those counties who are participating, which means they register with JBay, and we'll have more information on that in just a minute, then all those high school seniors who are from foster system who complete the FAFSA, I should say they're in foster care as seniors who complete the FAFSA, they will be entered into a drawing. And we're going to do one for small counties, one for medium-sized, and one for large counties in terms of the number of youth, so that everyone has a fair chance to win that scholarship. So the great news is we have 30 $500 scholarships to hand out to students who complete the FAFSA. Also, the County Office of Education who are registered and participating in the challenge have a chance to win a $1,000 award. That means they get that $1,000 unrestricted to as long as it's used for some kind of support for foster youth for post-secondary educational achievement. I've already heard a few say they already know they want to do a field trip to some colleges. You might use it for something like some electronic systems and social media work to reach the students, doing putting on workshops, FAFSA completion workshops, and so forth. But it's your choice as long as it's about post-secondary education. Again, this will be a random drawing of all those counties that reach the goal. It'll have the highest FAFSA completion rate, and then a pool of small, medium, and large counties to, again, make it fair for everyone to have a chance to win. So we're happy that that will help maybe sweeten the pot. So in addition to the students getting the financial aid that they are eligible for, they'll also have a chance to win a scholarship and maybe additional support from their county. So furthermore, we'll be offering some publicity and recognition and awards for the winners. And I'd like to turn it over to Melinda now and have her explain that and then the procedures for how to participate.
Thank you, Deborah. So many of you on this call are already working really hard to connect the students that you work with to college and career technical training. This statewide campaign really gives us the opportunity to send a powerful message to the broader community about how crucial financial aid is for these students, and to really publicly celebrate their achievements and your commitment to ensuring that they have the resources they need to obtain a post-secondary education. So throughout the whole campaign, we're going to be publicly celebrating counties that are participating, really highlighting your efforts through potential news coverage, both local and statewide, as well as social media. And then in the spring, counties that meet or exceed the challenge will see your successes promoted widely and may also receive one of the awards that Deborah just mentioned. So we're going to be making every effort to spread the news about the fantastic work your counties are doing to open the door to college for students in foster care for this challenge. Next slide, please. So how counties can participate. First, we just want to say thank you to everyone on this call. Nearly 300 people from around the state signed up for today's webinar, which is a fantastic barometer of the enthusiasm for community-wide efforts to boost FAFSA completion among our high school seniors in foster care. And it really is a community effort. So how the challenge works is the County Office of Education's Foster Youth Services Coordinating Program register for the challenge on behalf of their county. And then all other programs, organizations, and individuals that serve foster youth in that county, so schools, districts, ILPs, community-based organizations, foster family agencies, child welfare, resource parents, CASAs, etc., all play a key role by working directly with students to complete the FAFSA. And the link that FYSCPs use to register your county for the challenge has been emailed to all counties and is also posted on the FAFSA Challenge webpage. So we want everybody to register as soon as possible. The deadline for registering your county is December 31st. And then anyone who's not in a county office of ed, FYSCP, and wants to support the FAFSA Challenge effort in your county should contact your FYSCP, and FYSCPs will also be reaching out to community partners as well. Any community partner that's not already working with their FYSCP can use that same registration link to provide your contact information to JBay so we can connect you with your county FYSCP point person for the challenge. And we're just thrilled that nearly 20 counties have already registered. We'll be calling them out a little later in the webinar. And just a note about how we'll track the challenge. FYSCPs will use web grants to track the FAFSA completion of all 12th graders in foster care going to school in their counties and report it to JBay. The FYSCPs received a training on web grants at their statewide meeting recently and will receive ongoing support from JBay to track and report their county's data. And the last date that students' FAFSA completion will count toward the challenge is May 15th. So that's the close of the challenge on May 15th. And just a note to say that we're still developing a protocol around the complexities that come with students moving between counties and how those students' FAFSA completion will be tracked. We know that that's an issue, and we will be sending out information to the FYSCPs in the next couple of weeks on that. So just to recap, it's a community-wide effort in each county with the FYSCP registering the county for the challenge, providing the county's FAFSA completion data to JBay, and serving as a coordinating agency in the county. The FAFSA challenge policies and procedures document has all the fine print about everything we've just gone over briefly here, and you can find it on the FAFSA challenge webpage on the JBay site. Next slide, please.
Okay, great, Melinda. As I change the slide, I just want to explain for those on the call that might not be familiar with this, it went by fairly quickly, what FYSCP stands for. So that's Foster Youth Services Coordinating Program. So it's the Foster Youth Service Coordinators at each County Office of Education that we're referring to in that acronym FYSCP. And it's like so many things in our field, everyone talks in terms of in acronyms, and we often forget that everyone isn't familiar with them. So Foster Youth Services Coordinating Program exists in every County Office of Education. If you're a supporting partner, then that's the person, that coordinator is the person that you'll want to be connected with. And as Melinda beautifully explained, if you don't know who that person is and you register on our challenge website, we will get you connected.
Great.
And there's the website. Thanks.
And there's the website.
You.
Great. Yeah, so that we've made a special web page on the JBay website. You can find it if you go to the homepage of the JBay website, click Issue Areas, and then Education, and then you'll see a paragraph will lead you to this page for the FAFSA challenge. And we hope everyone involved in the challenge will visit this page often, because it has lots of great resources to support your work with students, and we're going to be adding to those resources over time. So you want to check that out. And back to you, Deborah.
Great, thank you, Melinda. Now, how to participate. Melinda's given plenty of direction, and we have a document that gives a lot more specifics. But I wanted to emphasize that, of course, we know it's partnerships that make this happen. I may have missed some names of organizations on here. I hope I didn't. But, you know, the fact is that the coordinator is the County Office of Education, that Foster Youth Services Coordinator, that will be the administrative center of this. But all of you, whether it's resource parents or CASA or child welfare agencies and people, high school counselors and folks at the colleges, you're all critical to having the foster youth complete their FAFSA. So it's this network, it's the community, it takes a village, right, that will make all of this happen. And I wanted to emphasize also that all seniors who are in school in your county who complete the FAFSA or California DREAM Act application will be counted. So that's the system we're working through with the County Office of Education. And that means that if they complete it on their own, or if you in your organization hold a workshop and they hit submit and complete the FAFSA, it will be counted. They will be counted. As well as if you're in a high school and you're completing it with a student, of course, your student will be counted. So they will all be part of the total. And more importantly, they'll all be in the line to get their financial aid. So a quick note on how to participate. This is specific to the County Office of Education folks. Your baseline count for the seniors in foster care in your district is the CalPADS 5.7 report dated December 1st, or if you prefer to use an earlier date, that's fine, but everyone agreed that December 1st was a good date, or the latest date to use. Be sure, and when you receive the promotional materials from us, that you share those with your community partners, and they will be requesting them from you, or you may already know who could put a poster up on their wall, who might need flyers, and so forth. Then you will provide non-identified numbers of students verified to have completed their FAFSA. I'm sorry, the baseline numbers to us by December 5th. So by December 5th, we need to know that total number of foster youth seniors in your county. And then if that number changes significantly, we know that foster youth are relocated at times in and out of county, then stay in touch with us so that you can update that baseline number if it changes significantly, and just stay in communication with us with any questions or concerns. We want this to work for you easily, and we're here to make sure that that happens. So on the community partner side, and that means colleges and all community organizations, ILPs, nonprofits, and so forth, the key here is that you engage your youth in completing the FAFSA. That can be holding your own events. Maybe you already do. Maybe you want to hold a new one, or working with one-on-one with students. Or it means helping youth get to an event that maybe the college or the district or the combination of the college and the district and community organizations are holding in your county. So that's that network again. And then also stay in communication with your Foster Youth Services Coordinator, that FYSCP, at your County Office of Education, so that you can get assistance and also provide them with feedback about what's working and what's not working. So again, we can help you connect if you don't know who that person is. Also, as a community partner, be sure and ask your County Office of Education Foster Youth Services Program, the FYSCP, for promotional materials, those posters and flyers and stickers and things that we'll be providing. And then you can also ask your county coordinator for updates on which students have completed the FAFSA and who hasn't, knowing who where you are in your goal. Now, I want to emphasize the data that show the success rate for different kinds of financial aid. So I think the chart's pretty clear that with a BOG only, we get 34% of students who succeed through that initial phase, excuse me, in the 2-year, pre-transfer era. Then we get a 47% success rate with the BOG and the Pell and the Cal grant. I call it the trifecta, right? That's where we get almost half of students completing a transfer level or a certificate level program for career education. That's a huge difference, and that's one that is what we're trying to make sure we address here, and we get that trifecta. And I would add to that, this data didn't study it, but I would add to that the Foster Youth Chafee grant, which they're eligible for, and that this emphasizes that it's the date of the priority deadline that's really key, and I'll emphasize that in a second. So it's March 2nd is the priority deadline, and that's how you qualify for a Cal grant. That would get them to that trifecta. So we want to make sure that we're getting as many students through before March 2nd as possible. And then again, to the county folks on the call, it's the participating county's responsibility to submit this data to JBay with anonymized identifiers. No student personal information is being passed on. And you tell us who has completed the FAFSA or DREAM Act application 3 times. January 31st, to give us a progress report. March 15th, so we know how many have met that March 2nd priority deadline, and we really want to encourage that. And then May 31st will be the reporting deadline for those youth who have completed the FAFSA up through May 15th, which is the end of the challenge. So that means that the counties have 2 chances to win that $1,000 unrestricted funds for post-secondary activities for foster youth. That report by March 15th puts you in the drawing for meeting the March 2nd priority deadline. So we'll do a drawing of those small, medium, and large counties who have the greatest number of students who've completed FAFSA at that point. And then on May 31st, we will draw counties who have the most students who've completed the FAFSA by May 15th. So we are excited to be excited to be offering some resources. See, I'm stumbling over my words, to help you meet the challenge. So I'm going to turn it back over to Melinda to explain a little bit more about the first 2. It's all yours, Melinda.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we're going to be providing free promotional materials to all participating counties. We've talked with the folks in Florida who have a statewide FAFSA challenge. It's not specific to foster youth, but we asked them what promotional materials worked, and we heard a lot of great suggestions. And we're going to be creating posters and flyers that are going to speak specifically to high school seniors in foster care. And the reason behind that is that the messaging of other FAFSA campaigns, like the FAFSA itself, often make assumptions about students and families. So for example, a student might see a poster for a FAFSA event happening at his high school, but if that poster is aimed at students and parents, he might not think it's for him, or he might just be overwhelmed at the thought of trying to complete a financial aid form in the absence of his parents. So the Foster Youth FAFSA Challenge promotional materials will let that student know that there's money for him to go to college or technical training, and his community is supporting him in receiving it by taking the FAFSA challenge. So we're also designing stickers similar to the I voted stickers. These will not call out foster youth, but will be stickers that can be given to students after they've hit that submit button. And one thing we heard from the folks in Florida is stickers are very popular. So that's high on the list. So these promotional materials will be sent to the FYCP offices for sharing with schools and other community partners. And we're also developing a Foster Youth FAFSA Challenge Toolkit, which will be posted on the Challenge webpage. And it'll be a toolkit that anybody participating in the challenge can use. We're going to include lots of helpful tips and proven strategies for great events around FAFSA completion, an FAQ about the FAFSA, and so forth. So we are developing these materials as we speak, and I hope to have them to you in early December. And back to you, Deborah.
Thanks, Melinda. So on the technical assistance that we'll be providing as JBay, that means that we'll be passing along information about what's working, where things are going well, what kinds of things to look out for. We have lots of resources to share about the financial aid itself and what's available and so forth. I'm available by phone and email throughout the challenge for any questions or any connections that you need, any information. I always say I don't know all the answers, but I know people who do. I know how to find the people who have the answers. And I'll be providing that contact information at the end of the presentation. So we will also be available to participate somewhat in some of the events, or be able to help bring together regional events that help make this to happen. Very interested in helping assist regional level efforts. And then we're also offering to the counties that participate, the register to participate, we're offering our new financial aid guide for California foster youth, which we're very pleased to offer because we've put together what we think are many of those best practices, detailed tips and information that we learn from financial aid experts, and put them into an accessible booklet form for all of you, but also for all of the youth to have easy references to what they need to know to get their FAFSA completed, and also to follow through all the stages of getting financial aid. So this is just a screenshot of a couple of pages on how to apply for financial aid, just to give you a taste of what's available there. We will, as the county register, we will be sending a quantity of these to each county that's participating in the FAFSA challenge. I'll give you some other information a little bit later, but if you want to purchase some copies of this, we have a way to make that available as well, and hope that many thousands of these get out to the students and to the professionals that work with them. We also have converted, or I should say supplemented, the printed version of the guide with a visual online version that actually uses screenshots of the FAFSA, which and gives step-by-step instructions and tips on the critical points that foster youth need to pay special attention so they get all of the aid that they're eligible for. In the website that are at the bottom of the page, cacollegepathways.org/financial aid, you'll find this guide, the links to it, and also a link to a PDF of the printed guide, so you can download that today and have it available as a PDF. And then you can also use the online guide, or the student can use it while completing the FAFSA. And I want to give a hat tip to Jessica Petros for getting this done and covering so many specific details that are so helpful. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica and let her give you a chance, and let her have a chance to sort of demystify some of those specific elements of the FAFSA that are crucial for foster youth. So Jessica, it's all yours.
Thank you. So we know that filling out the FAFSA can be intimidating sometimes and feel overwhelming. So we wanted to share with you all a few tips to hopefully make the process easier. And as Deborah mentioned, there's definitely more detailed information in that financial aid guide and the visual guide as well. So you can go to the next slide. So our first tip are a few items that you want to make sure your students bring when they come in to fill out the FAFSA. One of them being their social security number and their name exactly as it is on their social security card. Particularly for seniors in high school, they've never used their social security number before and don't have this memorized. So you want to make sure that they have this information when they come in to fill out the FAFSA. They won't be able to start or complete the FAFSA without this. And if you're working with any students that are permanent residents that might have a green card, they can fill out the FAFSA as well. They'll just have to enter their alien registration number. And of course, as Deborah had mentioned earlier, if you're working with any students that are undocumented, definitely look into the California DREAM Act if they don't have that social security number to see if they're eligible to complete that. The other item that they'll need is an email address, and their email is where they're going to get very critical information about their financial aid. So it's really important that they have one that they know how to access and can use regularly. Particularly for high school seniors, they may not have an email address yet, or the email they have is issued from their high school, which is often temporary and will expire. So we really want to make sure that they have an email they can use long-term throughout their duration in college, and something like a Gmail. So helping them to set that up as well will be very helpful. And lastly is the student's income information. So if you're working with a student right now in their FAFSA and they're applying for the 2018 or 2019 academic school year, they'll be asked to report information on their income from 2016. So for some students, maybe they made enough money to file taxes. They would need to provide their tax information. For a lot of our seniors, that won't be the case, but if they did earn any kind of income in 2016, even if it was a part-time paid employment opportunity, they'll need to know those numbers when they fill out their application and submit that. If you do work with any students who did file taxes, there is an opportunity on the FAFSA to actually link their tax information to the application directly if they don't have their tax transcripts with them. However, sometimes there can be technical issues with that, so we always recommend that if they have their tax information to bring that hard copy in as well, just in case, to prevent any errors or issues. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So one thing that we really want to emphasize is our goal is to make sure that our foster youth get the maximum financial aid award possible. And there's really key 3 steps for them to be able to access that financial aid. And that's completing the FAFSA application, the Chafee grant application, and the web grants account. So doing these 3 steps, approximately when you're sitting with a youth, can take about an hour. Some students, they might go more quickly through this, but I think it's good to budget about an hour to get all these 3 key steps completed. Of course, the FAFSA would be the first step, or the California DREAM Act. And again, depending on the student, that might take 30 or 45 minutes to complete. And after they filled out that financial aid application, we want to make sure that immediately after they fill out their application for the Chafee grant. Now, the Chafee grant is for foster youth specifically, and they can earn up to $5,000 to use at a college or university or career and technical school of their choice. And it's for foster youth who are in care between the ages of 16 and 18. So this is a really great opportunity for them to get an additional $5,000. But in order to do this, they have to fill out that FAFSA or California DREAM Act, and then that additional Chafee application. There's further information about all of this in the guide as well, but the Chafee grant application is very quick and easy. It probably takes about 5 minutes to complete, so definitely help the youth in filling that out immediately after. And then afterwards, they filled out that Chafee grant application, we encourage them to create a web grants account. Again, this is very quick and easy, probably takes about 5 minutes. This web grants account is going to be really critical. This is where the student will get information about their Cal Grant aid, if they're eligible to receive that, get information about that Chafee grant aid and application. This is where they'll need to update any of their personal information if it changes to make sure that they get their financial aid and indicate what school they're going to end up going to. So it's important to take those few 5 minutes to sign up and log in and create a web grants account as well. Next slide. So one thing we did want to highlight, just because this comes up sometimes with the students that we work with, we see a lot of errors with this, is the FSA ID. So what that is when a student goes to start a new FAFSA application, they click Start a New Application, they're brought to a login page. And there's actually two options of how a student can log into the application, so it can be a little confusing. But one of the options is they can enter their student information, which a lot of students think, great, I'll just plug in my info and start the application. We don't want them to choose that option. What we want is for them to choose the option that says enter the student's FSA ID. That stands for the Federal Student Aid ID. And this is very, very critical that they take time to create this ID, because what it will do is serve as their legal signature at the end of the application to be able to sign and actually submit the application. So when they click on the button to create that FSA ID, they'll be taken to another page. They have to enter a series of questions. It can take a little bit of time, but once they answer all the questions, including, again, their social security number and their name on their social security card, and again, they can only enter that in once, so it's really important they enter it slowly and accurately to avoid any error. Their ID gets issued almost automatically, and then they can use it to log in to their FAFSA application. You can go to the next slide. So we just wanted to take a moment as a tip to remind students that as they go through this process, to take the time to write down all these username and passwords that they're creating so they don't forget. It's so easy for students to create all these various passwords and forget it later and not be able to log in. So as I was mentioning, as they're creating that FSA ID, they'll have to create a username, they'll have to create a password. We also recommend that students write down their email address and the password that they're going to be using to access their account, especially if they just created an email address and password for the first time. I've seen a lot of students forget that as well. And then once they start the FAFSA application, they actually have to create another password. It's called the save key. And what this is if they don't finish their application all in one setting, that's okay, but they have to create the save key. So if they want to be able to go back in and finish the application, to do so within 45 days. So again, we want them to write down that save key and those other items so they have that safely stored for the future as well. Next slide. So this is one section of the FAFSA that we wanted to spend a little bit of time on to give further information, because it's really critical for our foster youth, and also sometimes we see a lot of errors for foster youth in this section as well, where they miss out on money that they're eligible for. So the dependency determination is one section within the FAFSA application. And what that is a series of questions to determine if a youth qualifies as independent status on the FAFSA application. And what that means is if a student qualifies as independent for the purposes of the FAFSA, then they don't have to report any income or information on their parents or legal guardians. And that's really critical for our foster youth. So when they get to this section, they're going to be asked a series of questions, and they pop up one by one. And right here, we have a screenshot of what this section looks like. There's other students that are eligible for independent status too, such as students who are married or have children or of a certain age. But as they go through, one of the questions says, at any time since you turned age 13, were both your parents deceased, were you in foster care, or were you a dependent or ward of the court? So this is really critical. We want to make sure that our foster youth that can answer yes to this question, see this question, and answer yes appropriately. So essentially, if they were in foster care, even just one day after the age of 13, they can answer yes to this question, and all the rest of the questions on the application will be based off of themselves and not their parents or legal guardians. There's also another question that says, did someone other than your parents or step-parents have legal guardianship of you? So if you're working with any students that have legal guardians that are other than their parents or step-parents, they can also qualify as an independent student on the FAFSA by checking yes on this question. So we just want to make sure that you all are aware of this critical question on the FAFSA for our foster youth. And I think that's all for our tips for the FAFSA for today. Turn it back to you, Deborah.
Thanks, Jessica. And I just want to highlight again this, how important this dependency determination is, because that will determine what income the students need to include and what they don't need to include. And that can make a huge difference in the amount of financial aid that they receive. So thank you. Now, I'm going to go again to point out the way we're going to sort of track what's happening and what's happening in terms of the students and the numbers in each county. So we're going to ask each county coordinator to verify that the high school GPA has been submitted. I'm sorry, it's not just the county coordinator, but one thing that has to happen after you hit submit on the FAFSA, but before March 2nd, in order to qualify for Cal Grant and all the best financial, the best packaging of financial aid, that March 2nd deadline, is to verify that the high school GPA has been submitted to California Student Aid Commission through web grants. Now, the schools are required to submit the GPA verification, but it needs to be double checked to make sure it's happened and that the match of the student's GPA record from the high school has been made with the FAFSA application. And I think our speaker, Jeff, will be able to speak to the fact that that doesn't always happen. Now, the student can have an account. Hopefully you've set up the account on web grants for the student. They can check to make sure that their application has been received and is verified GPA. The district foster youth liaison or the academic counselor, it can vary some in different districts, who has access to the web grants, but they can verify that the GPA verification has been submitted and matched to the FAFSA application. And then the county foster youth service coordinators can have an account on web grants and check as well. And we spent some time in a meeting this week helping those coordinators get clear about how to do that. Anybody who happens to be on the call or isn't clear, if you're a foster youth service coordinator, let me know. We'll make sure that you are set up to be able to verify that all those applications that are submitted are completed with GPA verification. That's essential for getting the maximum financial aid by March 2nd. Can I say March 2nd enough? I just wanted to touch on what we've heard from lots of you and others around the state about what some successful strategies for getting 100% completion of FAFSA and the California DREAM Act application. And that's actually my private goal, that all those high school seniors who are graduating, who have experience in the foster system, are completing financial aid applications and moving on to some kind of post-secondary education. So a lot of folks hold events, and then the key is to getting the youth to those events. So that can take a lot of coordination between different partners. Some folks work one-on-one with students, and that at some point is almost essential if it's at an event or it's an individual counseling session to go through all those things that Jessica just highlighted. And of course, there's more than that to the FAFSA. Some folks are using text reminders, some systems that are available or things that are something called Up Next, not to be confused with a special California foster youth program called Next Up, which exists in some community colleges, but there are some text reminder systems called Up Next and one called Remind, probably others you may know about, but a great way to help students make sure that they are checking that GPA verification is done, things like that. And then some provide incentives. They make sure there's food at the events. They may be providing gift cards and so forth. So also just promoting the importance of the FAFSA. And then the financial aid is available to foster youth, which is why we're offering posters to get that word in front of people. Yes, foster youth can go to college, and yes, there's financial aid to help you do that. And of course, word of mouth, spread the word, help the students, encourage the students to talk to other students and make it a buzz. So with that note, we wanted to spotlight a school district that's particularly successful at reaching all of the foster youth and give you a chance to hear some of the strategies and methods that they use in order to make sure that all of their foster youth have a plan going from high school into a career plan or post-secondary education. And with that, I will turn it over to our friend Jeff Belcher, who is with the Project Access at Fresno Unified School District.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Once again, my name is Jeff Belcher, and I currently work in Project Access. So Deborah, can you please go to the next slide? So Project Access is a partner within Fresno Unified School District, and currently Fresno Unified has 73,000 students. So Project Access serves the students who are homeless or in transition and their families, and we also serve foster youth placed by probation or CPS. Next slide. So currently, every year in Fresno Unified, we have about 1,000. Oh, there we go. Currently, Fresno Unified has about 1,000 students who come in and out of foster care every year. Currently, number of foster youth in Fresno Unified School District is approximately about 764 students, and currently Fresno Unified is sitting at 41 seniors that are at 13 of our high schools. That's as of today. And when I talk about foster youth for the seniors, it is including probation and CPS placement. Next slide. So Fresno Unified uses, the important thing is, how do we know that we get all of our students? How do we know for sure that a school district knows who all their foster students are? So Fresno Unified has worked very hard with Fresno County CPS and developed an MOU where they send us information weekly on who are the students that are Fresno County dependents. And then another thing we use quite regularly is CalPads. As everybody has access to CalPads will give us a report of who all our students are in this in their district. And another example is Foster Focus. Some counties do not participate, but we are a participating county in Foster Focus that also shares information about who is in foster care. And then also, we also collaborate with Fresno County Child Protective Services, educational liaisons. These are people inside FAFSA that work with all of the school districts in Fresno County. And then it's also important for foster family agencies to ensure that the school districts know who their foster are. So as you're working with your particular foster parents, it's important to make sure that if they just get a brand new child into their home, that they go to the school and make sure that they identify as being in foster care. Next slide. So in Fresno Unified, we have a team of people that really focus on working with our students that are in foster care. First and foremost, we work really hard to make sure that our academic counselors at the school site know who their kids are, especially when it comes to college applications and financial aid purposes. We've worked very hard to make sure that our counselors know who they are, and then we also track their progress, and also we talk to the school sites on how we can support those students and the work so that we get 100% completion rate. So the people that work with them are the academic counselor, myself as the TSA. This year, with the local control funding formula, we got the privilege of hiring an academic counselor that is just assigned to foster and homeless youth. And then also we partner with our Fresno County Superintendent of Schools Foster Youth Services Department to help as well. Next slide. So as we complete the things, we've had a lot of conversation about different things, but it's important to remember some key steps. Most important thing is, as you're working with your students, is to double check when the student says they have applied and made sure everything is done. Have the student log in with you and make sure they hit the submit button. You think how simple that can be, but as people that have worked with kids completing the FAFSA, there's a lot of times I've run across kids that promise to me that they have done the FAFSA, but when they log in, they forgot to hit the submit button. Next thing is, after January 1st in our district, we want to make sure that students' GPAs are submitted to CSEC manually. So that's a form that the high school counselors can fill out, and then it gets uploaded to CSEC so that the student's GPA is matched. And that was talked about earlier in the presentation. And then also too, sometimes when you fill out a FAFSA application, it will not be correctly matched for the Student Aid Commission. And a common example of this is, for example, if you take the last name Sanchez on the student's Social Security card, it could be Sanchez with a Z, but when the student went to go and enroll at a local school, it could be Sanchez with an S. So they would not be a match within the CSAC application. So what you can do is you can log in with the student's web grant with the student, and you guys can look at it and see if there's any errors. And then if you're still concerned, I would recommend contacting your local high school counselor to help you solve those issues. Next slide. So what we did is we started a simple process of just creating a simple spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet talks about, who are our students and how they are going through the process. We look at their just basic information, their name, their date of birth, what school to go to, their grade, whether they're in-county or out-of-county students, whether or not in special ed, whether or not they're AB 167, whether or not they're on A through G track. And then on looking at the columns on the right, we track the students' college ID number, whether or not they have applied for college, whether or not they've done the matriculation process, which is the orientation, the placement test, the enrollment, the student education plan. And then we're one of the few schools that have a next step program at our community college, so we make sure that they have a submitted application as well. And then we also look at, have they applied for FAFSA, and then also, do we have the confirmation that there is a match in this California Student Aid Commission, and also, too, did they apply for the CHAFE? So that's important for us to track, because if there's any errors, then we can go out to the school sites and support making sure that any errors that are happening, that we can go and support and fix those errors. And then we also, too, keep track of the students that have been in foster care but are currently not in foster care. So like it was shared earlier, anybody after the age of 13 was in foster care, they can apply as a FAFSA as being in foster care. So we reach out to those students as well to make sure that they are given the opportunity to file that way. Next slide. So some key steps. One thing we do is what happens if a student does not plan to apply to college. So if a student says, well, you know what, I'm not going to go to college. I don't think I'm college material, or I don't just don't want to go. I just want to go to work. So Project Access goes out and meets with the student. It normally turns out for a student applying to college because they didn't know that they could apply. They didn't know how to begin applying. They just don't know the steps. If the student still declines, then we set up a meeting between Project Access social workers, the CPS social worker, the academic counselor, or myself, the education rights holder, and the student, and we talk about what are the concerns of why they do not want to go to a post-secondary school. And usually at the end of those conversations, it results in the student saying, well, I'm interested in this, and we work on finding them a program that will support their training so that they can go into that particular career. Next question. So outcomes. So what's most importantly, what have been our results? Since 2014-15 school year, we've contacted 100% of our foster youth in foster care. These are seniors that are enrolled in Fresno Unified School District, and we have developed a plan. We've contacted 100% since 2014-15. So foster youth that have been applying to college in FAFSA were in 2014-15. We had 94%, 15-16, 91%, and then last year we had 92%. That's usually, I usually have that one or two students that something happens where they have to either leave the country, or one year we had a girl that was expecting to be a mom on the first day of community college, so they didn't decide to take a semester off. And then foster youth that are registered for Fresno City College when they graduate high school are fully matriculated into the school. Next slide. So if anybody has any questions that if you do not get time today to ask the questions here on the webinar, this is my contact information, and I can be reached at this phone number or email with any questions, or if you need any help trying to strategize. I wanted to make myself available for any support that I can offer to make sure that students that are in foster care get the opportunity to apply for college. And with that, I will turn it back over to Deborah.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff is so generous with his time. I really appreciate the time you've given us this week at a meeting and this webinar, and highlighting the fact that you're really spending so much time with each student and helping them figure out the next steps for their future. And this level of support and these outcomes, it's really worth noting that that's based on the school and their commitment. And it's not like a special private grant or anything that helped make this happen. It's the commitment at the level of the student. And so for those of you in the K-12 world, you know, I can say it in the lingo that there's no extra support here beyond the LCFF funding formulas. So congratulations and hats off to Jeff, and thank you for sharing this inspiration with us and some of your specific strategies and tips. I think it's really helpful. And those of you who are not in the school districts, I think might at least be able to appreciate what it takes and what's possible, and be in communication and help support that. So again, thank you, Jeff. Quickly, I just want to let you know that you can get, as I said, you can download a free copy of the financial aid guide that we produce for California foster youth at the website that's on your screen, californiacollegepathways.org/financial aid. You can order a form for print copies if you click on that SurveyMonkey link or enter that. And that will come to us, either that or through an email at publications@jbaforyouth.org. And we will provide you with the information that you need to know about costs, because it varies a bit depending on how many you're ordering. If you're ordering 1,000, they cost less than if you're ordering 200. So you might want to order 1,000. And then here's the contact information for myself. Feel free to call and or email at any time. We really are excited about getting this thing 100%, although the official goal is 61%. And Melinda's email address is here for you. Contact her for any information on the procedural side of things, the registration and that system, and also the publicity materials, promotional materials, all of the communications information. That's Melinda's expertise, and she's there to help. I want to quickly acknowledge the counties that have registered so far. Woo! Can you hear the applause? Yes. So we already have quite a great showing for registering to participate in the challenge. Now, again, these are the administrative sort of centers of this great challenge. This means that these folks are already working on getting the challenge in play, and all of you who are on the call that are not in the K-12 or not in the, well, if you are in the K-12 or you're not in the county ed department, these are the folks that are already working to help support the work that you're doing and that you can help support that achievement. So again, the website address is the jbaforyouth.org/FAFSA challenge. That's where you can go to get more detailed information. And as Melinda said, keep checking it. We invite everybody to take the challenge and be sure that you're connected with other partners in the county and on board, and make sure those students hit submit, make sure they verify the GPA and meet the challenge. So with that, I'll move to question and answer, and I'll start with one quick note, two quick notes actually, make sure that they get covered. One is that if you are looking for promotional materials to help spread the word with the youth that you work with, contact your county coordinator, that foster youth services coordinator. And again, if you don't know who that is, let us know, we'll connect you. And then also a quick point on the GPA verification. Non-public schools can submit the GPA verification to CSAC, California Student Aid Commission, but they're not legally required to. So all the more important to verify the verification. Verification, always important. And then I'm going to turn it over to Debbie Rauscher, who's fielding the questions and can make sure that we get all your questions answered.
All right, thank you so much. So we have a lot of questions coming in. So we're going to try and move through these pretty quickly so we can get to as many as possible. I'm going to start with a couple real simple ones, some acronym clarifications again. Deborah, if you could clarify, the BOG was mentioned a couple of times. What does that stand for, and what is the BOG?
Thanks, good one. Board of Governors Fee Waiver, and that is the Board of Governors of the California Community College System. So it's called BOG for short, and it waives the fees. California community colleges don't have tuition, so they have fees to attend. It waives those fees for qualified eligible students.
I'll just note that the BOG actually has a new name. It's called the California Promise Grant. So if you hear that, that's referring to that same thing. Jeff, another quick just acronym clarification from you. You referenced a TSA. What is that?
Teacher on special assignment.
Teacher on special assignment. Got it. Okay. So let's see. I've got a couple FAFSA questions. Jessica, maybe I'll direct these to you as our FAFSA expert. Okay, the first is if a youth is interested in applying to a short-term career and technical education program, do they still complete the FAFSA?
Yes, they should. And a Chafee grant as well can be used at qualified career and technical education schools. They have to meet certain standards and criteria that their school leads to positive outcomes. So assuming their school and college meets those criteria, they can use their Chafee grant there.
Great. Next FAFSA question. If somebody was in foster care after 13 and they went into a legal guardianship after the age of 13, so they meet both of the qualifications of being in foster care after age 13 and also being in legal guardianship, would they check both boxes on the FAFSA?
I haven't received that question before, but they can only check one box. So as soon as they check the first box, they qualify as independent status. So the first question that's going to come up is if they were in care after the age of 13. So I think they could just check that box off, and then they won't even receive the further questions.
They won't even see the guardianship question, right? Okay.
Right.
So logistical question, Deborah, I'm going to just put this to you. Is this webinar being recorded, and will people have an opportunity to listen to it later if they need to?
It is being recorded. It will be posted on the JBay website, and you can listen to it at any time and share it with others.
Great. Jessica, back to you. If somebody's getting income through AB 12, extended foster care that's paid directly to them, do they have to report that income on the FAFSA?
Great question. No, they do not need to report that anywhere on there. It does not need to go as unearned tax or unearned income or additional income. That is one type of income that they do not have to report, as well as SSI. So if you have any students receiving Social Security income, that is also income that they do not have to report.
Great. Okay, the next FAFSA question for you, Jessica, is when can students start the FAFSA for the next year?
So the priority registration period is from October 1st to March 2nd, so they can start filling it out right now. And again, as it was mentioned earlier, while they can apply after March 2nd, they may not be as eligible for as much money, so we want to make sure that all of our students start applying as soon as possible and get it in by March 2nd.
Great. So another question about how students get counted when they complete the FAFSA. So Deborah, I'm going to put this one to you. If somebody completes the FAFSA, say at a financial aid night, like at a workshop that somebody's doing, does this still get counted for the challenge? How does the county know if they didn't do it themselves?
Yes, this is the beauty of the technological age. So the secret is what Jeff said, which is click submit. So once they click submit, that information goes to the California Student Aid Commission, which means that FAFSA completion is recorded with that student's ID information, and that's why they need a Web Grants account, because the Web Grants is the way to verify that it was submitted, and that's how the county is going to verify that it was submitted, and that will be the total count of students who completed the FAFSA in the county. So that means a student can be at home by themselves and complete the FAFSA, and it will get put into that pool of students in a county that the county coordinator has a list of to verify that they've completed the FAFSA. Then the next step is, of course, to make sure that the GPA verification is completed so that they get the maximum financial aid. But any student anywhere in the county who's attending a school in the county who completes a FAFSA by hitting submit, and at any event or any circumstance will be included in the total.
Great. So I have a couple questions for Jeff now. So Jeff, you had mentioned on one of your slides making sure that the student's name matches. And somebody just was asking for a little clarification, if you can repeat what needs to match to what?
So once a school district submits their GPAs up to CSAC, they use the name that's in the student information system of their local school district. And so we want to make sure that that name, it matches with the name that's on the student's social security card, and so sometimes there's not a match. It's a very high percentage get matched. I think it's over 90%, but there's that 10% that if a student, for example, has a hyphenated name on his social security card and the school district doesn't put the hyphenated last name on the social security, on the student's information system, there could be some errors. So that's why it's important to check the web grant information login so that you can see, okay, yes, it's been matched and we're good, or no, there could be some problems.
Great. Another question for you, Jeff. Somebody was asking if you would be willing to share the spreadsheet format that you created.
Yes.
Great. So we'll go ahead and get that from Jeff, and we're going to send out a follow-up email with a link to the recording, and we'll send out the slides, and so we'll go ahead and include that spreadsheet template as well. Another quick, Jessica, I'm going to direct this question to you as a follow-up to the question about AB 12 income. If they're a young parent who's receiving the infant supplement or the money that comes through a parent support plan, does that money need to be reported, or is all money that comes directly from the child welfare agency treated the same and not reported?
That's a good question. I believe there is a question, and I'm not 100% sure.
You know what? I believe
there is a question.
You know, Jessica, I'm going to go ahead and chime in.
Yes,
so the
great.
guidance from the Department of Education actually clarifies that any funds received that are part of a foster care payment are not counted on the FAFSA. So because those additional funds are part of a foster care payment, that's kind of the federal law that exempts any of those payments. So those do not need to be reported. So, okay, we're getting some questions about,
interject just.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If I could just interject one more tip, is if you're talking to any students who say, yeah, I completed my FAFSA, I highly, highly recommend that you ask them if you can review it with them, because we see a lot of the times that students fill out their FAFSA application, but they answer a question incorrectly. And so it's really great if you can take the time to sit with them and review the information, because they can go back and make edits if they do need to make any changes to questions that were answered incorrectly. Just recommend that as well.
Great. So we're getting several folks writing in wanting to know how they connect to the FYSCP, the Foster Youth Services Coordinating Program for their county, if they don't know who that is, or if they see that their county is not signed up yet. What should they do? Deborah?
They can email Melinda let me get her address up. Melinda, and then she and I will work together to make sure that they get connected to the right folks. And of course, even if your county has not been registered so far, you might check in with them and see if they're planning to register, maybe, help make it easier for them to do so. Here's Melinda and my contact information. You can always feel free to contact me as well. Can you ask, Debbie,
Jessica,
can we address the materials question, give Melinda a chance to answer the question about how a non-county or how a non-county coordinator or county office of ed person could get materials? Melinda, can you address that?
Sure. So we're going to be sending the promotional materials to the county FYSCPs to distribute to their community partners. But if at any point, a community partner wants to reach out directly to us for their materials, just email me and we'll get it going.
Great, thank you. So Jessica, a couple other FAFSA questions. Is there a minimum GPA requirement for getting financial aid?
The answer is it depends. Different types of federal and state aid have different eligibility requirements. So for example, for the Cal grants, they might have a GPA requirement, where all other grants like the Pell Grant don't have a GPA requirement. So we would encourage every student to fill out that FAFSA application and GPA application regardless. For the Cal Grant application, there's various types of Cal Grants that are offered, but they do need at least a 2.0 GPA.
Great. Another, it's not actually a FAFSA question, but financial aid related question. Does a foster youth need to reapply every year for the Chafee grants?
That depends as well. If once they receive the Chafee grant, they do not need to continue to reapply each year. So that's good to know. Whereas with the FAFSA application, they do need to reapply every year. If they, for some reason, did not get the Chafee grant application, there's a prioritization list. We're seeing that happen less, but if they didn't receive the grant, then we would have them reapply again.
Great. I'm going to take the next question. Somebody was asking about the Chafee website and having some challenges with filling out the Chafee application online. And so I will just say to that there is a paper application that you can do, a student can submit if for some reason they're not able to use the online application. And there was questions about what could be done to perhaps improve that. And I would say reach out to us, and we can find out who the contact might be at CSAC who manage that website to kind of troubleshoot what the specific issues are. So we're pretty much at time. I'm just going to close with actually one last question for Jeff. If you're working with a high school senior who says that they don't want to go to college, would you still recommend that they complete the FAFSA?
I'm going to answer for Jeff because he said he had to leave to go to another meeting. So okay. I'll tell you what I've heard him say, and then we'll see. He said he can also answer questions later, so you could email me with that question. But Jeff has said that when he sits down with a student, he asks them, what are your plans? What are you going to do? And if they say, I'm not going to college, I just got to get a job. He asks them what kind of job. And when they start talking about what they're thinking about doing, he'll ask them, well, what's your interest? What would you really like to be doing? And so he helps them, sort of do that exploration, and then says, well, great, there's a program to help you do that. And there's financial aid to help you do that program so that you can get a better paying job right away. And so I think that's why he showed his statistics that all the students do end up applying for some kind of program in financial aid based on their interest. And he's described the fact that many of them don't have a sense that there's much else out there for them until he talks with them. I'm sure you've all experienced that too. So he'll get them at least far enough to see that there's some money. I've even heard him say, being a foster youth it can be really tough and lousy, but this is one benefit of foster youth can bring financial aid to get through school. So that's why most of the only students I know of that he said in the last 2 years that haven't applied and gotten financial aid are either they've gone into the military and he verifies with their recruiter that they have a specific start date, they actually have stepped forward, or like I mentioned, the student who is going to have a baby. So that, I think, is the key there, is that he's listening to them, helping them with their interest, and showing them a pathway to it.
Great. So I know we're at time, we're actually a couple minutes past time. So for those of you questions we did not have time to get to, we will be sending out this PowerPoint later, and it has Melinda's contact information. So you should absolutely feel free to follow up with any questions we weren't able to get to. And Deborah, I'll send it back to you to close.
So I just want to thank you all for being here. It says so much about the support that's out there for foster youth, your commitment, your interest in serving them, and we want to provide tools to make that more possible and give them that greater start in life. for success. So thank you for being here. Thanks for doing the work you do. Feel free to contact us if there's any way we can help. And we look forward to seeing you around the state. And take care. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.